Hey guys, how's it going? Hope you're doing well. My name is Crown, and today I'm going to read you some very interesting stories that I hope that you're gonna love. And now, without further ado, let's go!
During my time in the Dutch Navy and after returning from my stint in Curaçao, I was stationed at the naval base in Den Helder, Netherlands, working as a driver. Our company had a big garage filled with all sorts of vehicles, trucks, touring cars, small buses, and what we called luxury cars, which were just ordinary cars really. My job involved driving these vehicles, but we also assigned the luxury cars to Navy personnel for business trips. They'd come in, pick up a car with the proper paperwork, and be on their way. Simple enough, right? Well, not for everyone. Enter the sergeant major. This guy thought he was above the rules. He'd come in, take a company car, and leave his private vehicle parked inside our garage. Now, this was a big no-no. Insurance regulations and Navy rules strictly prohibited it. My chief, a sergeant, had told him multiple times to knock it off and park in the designated lot outside. But did he listen? Nope. The sergeant major would arrogantly remind my chief that he outranked him, implying there was nothing my chief could do about it. My chief would politely ask him again to park his personal vehicle in the assigned lot. The sergeant major would half-heartedly agree, but his actions never changed. The chief was getting fed up, but he didn't want to go through official channels. That's when he came up with a plan that would teach the sergeant major a lesson without getting him into real trouble. The next time the sergeant major pulled his usual stunt, the chief called me and a co-worker over. He explained his plan to us, instructing us to use the forklifts to place a pallet loaded with concrete blocks right behind the sergeant major's car. We were to get as close as possible without actually touching it. Let me tell you, when we were done, that car wasn't going anywhere. I happened to be the driver on duty that afternoon, and the chief gave me crystal clear instructions. He emphasized that under no circumstances was I to remove that pallet. I assured him I understood. When the sergeant major returned with the company car, he didn't even notice his own vehicle was blocked in. He handed me the paperwork and keys, then walked away. A few moments later, he came storming back. The sergeant major demanded that I remove the pallet immediately. I apologized and explained that I wasn't authorized to operate the forklift. He then tried to order me to remove it, addressing me by my rank. I respectfully pointed out that while he outranked me in general, in my current function, I outranked him in this specific situation. He got angry and then he tried a different approach. He demanded I give him back the keys to the company car so he could drive that home instead. I had to refuse, explaining that without the proper paperwork allowing him to take the car to his home address, it would be considered military joyriding, which was illegal. The sergeant major stormed out, probably to make some phone calls. Eventually, a family member came to pick him up. The next day, I filled my chief in on what had happened. We shared a good laugh, then waited for the sergeant major to show up. When he finally did, he was livid. He loudly proclaimed that our actions were unacceptable and threatened to have our ranks stripped. But my chief had covered his bases. He told his superior, a captain, about the situation. The captain quickly shut down the sergeant major's tirade. He told the sergeant major that he should consider himself lucky there was no official reprimand and that this was his final warning about parking in the garage. The sergeant major's face fell. He mumbled an apology and skulked off. Only then did my chief give me the go-ahead to remove the pallet. He said he thought the sergeant major had learned his lesson. I nodded and went to work. From that day on, the sergeant major's car was always found in its proper place in the outdoor parking lot. I guess no matter your rank, the rules apply to everyone. And if you think you're above them, well, you might just find yourself blocked in by a pallet of concrete. I'm a college student, majoring in journalism. My classes don't start until the afternoon, so I usually spend my mornings at this quaint little cafe near campus. It's become my sanctuary, a place where I can sip on my latte, munch on a croissant, and work on my assignments in peace. The staff is friendly, the atmosphere is cozy, and the Wi-Fi is reliable. What more could a student ask for? On this one morning, I arrived at the cafe around 9 a.m. as usual. There was already a small line forming, but I didn't mind. I stood behind a man in work clothes, probably heading to his office after grabbing his morning coffee. In front of him was a woman who looked like she had just finished her morning jog. The line moved slowly but steadily, and I was content to wait my turn. That's when she walked in, a woman in her mid-40s, dressed in expensive clothes and carrying an expensive-looking handbag. She walked past the line and went straight to the counter. The barista, a young guy probably around my age, looked up at her with a polite smile. The barista greeted the woman politely and asked her to join the line. However, the woman responded rudely, implying that she was too important to wait in line with the other customers. The barista tried to explain that everyone needed to wait their turn, but the woman interrupted him. She went on to complain about having to stand in line with people who she thought couldn't afford to be there. She demanded that the cafe should have two separate lines, one for normal people like her and another for everyone else. The woman in jogging clothes at the front of the line spoke up, telling the rude woman that everyone was waiting patiently and she couldn't just cut in line. The rude woman dismissed her, telling her to mind her own business. At this point, the manager came out from the back, probably alerted by the commotion. He asked if there was a problem, and the rude woman explained her demand for a two-line system. The manager told her that they don't discriminate against customers and that everyone is welcome and must wait their turn. He warned her that if she wasn't willing to follow the rules, she'd have to leave. The woman reacted angrily, threatening the manager's job. Meanwhile, a group of teenagers at a nearby table had started recording the incident on their phones. One of them called the woman Karen and told her she was going viral. The woman, furious at being called Karen, demanded that the teenager give her the phone. Before anyone could stop her, she grabbed one of the phones, threw it to the ground, and stomped on it with her heel, breaking the screen. The cafe erupted into chaos. The manager quickly intervened, putting himself between the woman and the teenagers. He announced that he was calling the police and told the woman she needed to leave. He then asked the teenagers if they were okay and if they wanted to press charges. The teenagers eagerly agreed to press charges. When they were waiting for the police, the woman continued to rant and threaten everyone with lawsuits. When the police arrived, she mistakenly thought they were there to help her and demanded that everyone else be arrested for harassment. The police officer told her that they had received reports of her disorderly conduct and destruction of property. He asked her to calm down and come with them. The woman, shocked by this turn of events, refused to comply. As one officer approached her, she suddenly pulled out a pepper spray from her purse and sprayed him in the face. The officer cried out in pain and stumbled back. His partner quickly took action, warning the woman to drop the spray. When she didn't comply, he used his taser on her, causing her to collapse. They then handcuffed her and led her to the police car, all while she screamed about her rights and threatened to sue everyone. An ambulance arrived to treat the officer who had been sprayed. The other officer took statements from the manager, teenagers, and other witnesses, including myself. Once the situation was under control, the manager addressed everyone in the cafe. He apologized for what we had all witnessed and assured us that they don't tolerate discrimination or entitled behavior. To make up for the inconvenience, he offered a 50% discount to everyone currently in line. A small cheer went up from the crowd and slowly the atmosphere in the cafe began to return to normal. I opened up my laptop and started typing. I had a feeling this incident would make for one hell of a story for my journalism class. Maybe this crazy morning would end up being the start of my career as a reporter. After all, truth is often stranger than fiction, and I had just witnessed a prime example of that. I've been working at this small marketing firm for about 3 years now. I generally like my coworkers, but there's one thing that makes our days interesting, to say the least. You see, our company's name is eerily similar to the local parking enforcement agency. I'm talking one letter off. It's led to some pretty hilarious mix-ups, but also some seriously frustrating encounters. About a year ago, we began getting these weird calls. At first, we thought it was just wrong numbers, no big deal. But then the frequency picked up, and we realized what was happening. People would Google the parking enforcement agency, misspell it slightly, and end up calling us instead. Most folks were pretty understanding when we explained the mistake, but then there were the others. This one day stands out in particular. It was a Tuesday afternoon, and I'd just gotten back from lunch when the phone rang. I answered the phone with our usual company greeting, introducing myself and asking how I could help. The caller immediately launched into a tirade, saying they'd been trying to reach us all day and demanding their ticket be taken care of immediately. I tried to explain that there had been a misunderstanding, that we weren't the parking enforcement agency, but a marketing firm with a similar name. The caller wouldn't hear it. They insisted they knew exactly who they'd called and demanded to know if I was going to help them or not. I attempted to clarify again, offering to provide the correct number for the parking enforcement agency. The caller cut me off, growing increasingly agitated. They ranted about only parking for 2 minutes to run into the pharmacy and called us vultures for giving them a $50 fine, claiming it was highway robbery. I took a deep breath, reminding myself of our 3 attempts rule. I tried once more to explain that I understood their frustration, but assured them they had called the wrong number and we weren't associated with parking enforcement in any way. The caller accused me of calling them a liar, insisting they knew what number they'd dialed. They then went on a rant about how we were all the same trying to scam honest citizens out of their hard-earned money. For my final attempt, I pleaded with the caller, reiterating that we were a marketing company, we did not issue parking tickets, and we could not help them with this matter. The caller then called me useless and demanded to speak to my supervisor immediately. At this point, I'd had enough. Time to break out the secret weapon. I apologized for the confusion and offered to take down their information to see what I could do about the ticket. The caller's tone immediately changed. They expressed relief that I was finally being helpful and asked why I couldn't have done this from the start. I proceeded to take down all their details: name, address, ticket number, the works. Then I put on my most professional voice and told them I'd processed the cancellation. I instructed them to disregard any further notices about the ticket and asked if there was anything else I could help with. The caller said that would be all, but not without a parting shot about how I should lead with that kind of helpfulness instead of giving people the runaround. I wished them a wonderful day and hung up, immediately bursting into laughter. My co-worker at the next desk shot me a knowing look and asked if it was another one of those calls. I confirmed it was, explaining that this one caller was convinced I was personally out to get them over a 2-minute parking job. My co-worker then asked if I'd done the thing, to which I gleefully confirmed that I had indeed canceled the non-existent ticket. We shared a good chuckle over that. It's become something of an inside joke around the office. Whenever one of these calls comes in, we have a little tally going. The person who cancels the most fake tickets in a month gets first pick of the good donuts on Fridays. I know some might say we're being a bit mean, but honestly, after being yelled at and accused of scamming people day in and day out, it feels good to turn the tables a bit. Plus, who knows, maybe thinking their ticket's been cancelled will make these folks think twice before parking illegally again. Personally, I've gotten pretty good at spotting these calls right off the bat. There's just something in the tone of voice, but I always give them the benefit of the doubt to explain the situation clearly 3 times. It's only when they refuse to listen and start getting nasty that I break out the cancellation routine. It's not the most conventional way to deal with difficult customers, but hey, in a job like this, you've got to find your fun where you can. And if that means occasionally playing parking enforcement officer for a day, well, I'm okay with that. I am a 32-year-old guy with a wife who can't seem to handle the simplest things without my help. Don't get me wrong, I love her, but it's exhausting. We met 6 years ago at a mutual friend's barbecue. She was bubbly, energetic, and seemed so put together. We hit it off instantly, bonding over our shared love of indie music and obscure movies. Back then, I found her spontaneity charming. She'd surprise me with impromptu picnics or drag me to random art exhibits. It was fun, and I felt like I was living life to the fullest. We got married after 2 years of dating, and soon after, our son came along. That's when things started to change. At first, I chalked it up to new parent stress. We were both overwhelmed, learning to care for a tiny human while juggling our careers. But as time went on, I realized it wasn't just about the baby. My wife seemed incapable of dealing with any minor inconvenience without my immediate intervention. It started small. She'd call me at work because she couldn't find the car keys or forgot to buy milk. I'd talk her through it, reminding her of where she usually leaves things or suggesting alternatives. But it quickly escalated to more ridiculous scenarios. One day, about a year ago, I got a frantic call while in an important meeting. My wife urgently demanded that I come home right away. When I asked if our son was okay, she assured me he was fine but explained that the neighbor's dog was barking nonstop and she couldn't concentrate on her work. She insisted that I needed to go talk to the neighbors. I told her I was in the middle of a presentation and suggested she close the windows or put on some music. She argued that I didn't understand, saying she had a deadline and couldn't think straight with all the noise. She pleaded with me to do something. I ended up excusing myself from the meeting, driving home and knocking on the neighbor's door. Turns out they weren't even home and the dog was just lonely. I felt like an idiot and nearly got written up at work for leaving abruptly. These incidents kept piling up. Flat tires, forgotten wallets, minor disagreements with cashiers. Everything became my problem to solve. I tried talking to her about it, explaining that I couldn't always be her safety net for every little thing. She'd nod and agree, promising to be more self-reliant, but nothing ever changed. Then came the day of my son's doctor appointment. He'd been fussy all night with an ear infection, and I was running on about 2 hours of sleep. I'd taken the morning off work to get him checked out, knowing I'd have to make up the time later. We were sitting in the waiting room, my little guy whimpering in my lap, when my phone started buzzing. I saw my wife's name on the screen and hesitated before answering. Part of me knew it wouldn't be good news. When I answered, my wife expressed relief that I had picked up, claiming she was in big trouble. I asked what was wrong and she explained that she had locked her keys in the car at Target and needed me to come right away to help her get in. I reminded her that I was at the doctor's with our son and couldn't come. She insisted she was stranded and didn't know what to do. I suggested she call a locksmith, mentioning there was one right down the street from Target. She complained about the cost and tried to convince me to come, saying it would only take a few minutes. I explained that it would take much longer considering the drive time and that I wasn't going to leave our sick child at the doctor's office. I told her she needed to handle this herself. She accused me of being unreasonable and asked what she was supposed to do. I gave her several options, including calling a locksmith, her sister, or a cab to take her home to get the spare key. I told her to figure it out herself. I hung up knowing that if I caved this time, nothing would ever change. When we got home later that afternoon, my wife was waiting, arms crossed and face like thunder. She angrily accused me of leaving her stranded. I pointed out that she wasn't stranded but was actually 5 minutes from home in a busy shopping center. She complained about the locksmith charging her $150 and demanded that I pay for it since I refused to help. I refused, telling her that was the cost of solving her own problem for once. She protested that she didn't have her wallet and asked what she was supposed to do. I questioned why she didn't have her wallet at Target. She admitted she forgot it, reminding me that she's forgetful sometimes. I explained that this was exactly the problem, her constant forgetfulness, creating emergencies, and expecting me to drop everything to fix it. I told her I was done and couldn't keep doing this. When she asked what I meant, I clarified that she needed to start taking responsibility for herself. I explained that I was her husband, not her personal crisis manager, and while I loved her, I wasn't going to keep enabling her behavior. She took off, slamming our bedroom door. We barely spoke for the next few days, and I knew this couldn't continue if our marriage was going to survive. A week later, she came to me, eyes red from crying. She told me she had been thinking about what I said and hadn't realized how much she was relying on me for everything. She apologized, and I acknowledged her apology but emphasized that I needed to see real change, not just words. She agreed and shared that she had signed up for a personal organization course and was looking into therapy to work on her anxiety. She expressed her desire to do better. I told her that was a great start and assured her that I was there to support her, but I couldn't be her only solution anymore. It's been a month since then, and while it's not perfect, things are improving. She's making an effort to solve problems on her own before calling me, and I'm seeing glimpses of the capable woman I fell in love with. It's a work in progress, but for the first time in a long while, I feel hopeful about our future together. And now we have reached the end of today's stories. Thank you for watching, and see you next time.